But also looking at today's editorial cartoon in the Standard, which has been drawn by Gado, is really telling, of course, of this particular debate that we are having about dynasties or dynasties also, and the hustler posturing. That is what we have on, if we just pick it up from the touch screen, that is where we do have that particular editorial cartoon. We can see the saying, and you can see there on that particular picture, this is meant to be Mount Kenya. And maybe this meeting is happening somewhere in Mount Kenya as well. And there has been debates about Mount Kenya meetings at night. People have been stoutly denying this as well. Somebody is saying we should make sure the DP does not become a president even for one day. Another person is saying if he becomes president, we should make sure the DP is one of our own. Another one is saying, yeah, remember what happened with Moi? He ended up ruling us for 24 good years. Also, what does the Constitution say anyway? And then we have a blankety blank there, the Constitution. We can also try that other option. And this is just to bring to light of what is really happening, especially this particular debate that was raised about the dynasties and the hustler posturing. You say, Wamatangi, that the Deputy President is in no way, has he become a bit antsy on what is happening, especially with the handshake. But we can see him also going back to Eldoret, to the marketplace where he started as a hustler, selling chickens. And of course, people are also wondering why now, right? If he's not really trying to posture himself as a hustler. So this is the sort of, I think, an opportune time for him to try and posture himself as a hustler against the dynasty. So this is a political, toing and froing between dynasties, politics, and the hustler politics. And so he wants to ride maybe with this, and I think I should throw this to the panelists, with this particular atmosphere that we have right now of a hustler sympathy vote that Eseli was trying to raise. And this is a talk right now. So if it is now the dynasties who are coming together, do you think this will work for Ruto or it will work against Ruto? Let's start with Eseli, because
if the dynasties gang up against Ruto, it will work for Ruto.
It will work for Ruto.
Yes. In fact, if I were the dynasties and I didn't want Ruto, that's not the way to go about it. Because, Kenyans will always go for the underdog. Once they feel that somebody is being discriminated against, they'll definitely go for him, because they'll say, okay, what is it they want to hide from us? They have ruled all this time. What is it that they want to hide from us? So I think if the dynasties gang up against Ruto, then they'll give Ruto, if he has a head start now, I don't know what you will call that start. It will be a whole body start, not just a head start. So I think it will be unwise for the dynasties to gang up. I hope the dynasties are ganging up to study, to look at where they went wrong in the ruling of this country and try and correct it in the remaining 4 years. I hope that's what they are getting together for. But if they're getting together as to determine who their choice will be for the leadership, then I think that will be very unfortunate. All
right, let's say from Boni Khalwale, because also the issue of the team that we know of Paul Mwangi and Ambassador Martin Kimani as well, because of a handshake. I'm given to understand also Ruto is actually gagging for a space also amongst this particular team, that he wants Davis Chericheri to be part of this particular team as well. He's feeling left out, according to information coming to us as well, that he's feeling left out in all this scenario about the handshake as well. So do you think, first of all, he should actually be let in this particular agreement between, or this particular handshake, right? And also Davis Chericheri, who was the chief campaigner or the chief, I can't remember, during the elections, what was it, returning officer of the Jubilee Party?
Yes, Ruto should be allowed to nominate somebody to that table of discussion. In fact, he should be allowed to sit at that table, just as much as I am expecting that as many stakeholders as possible, Ruto included, will be allowed to sit on that table of dialogue. But more importantly, Debarl, you've asked my senior, Dr. David Eseli, about whether the grouping of the dynasties will make or break Ruto. It is easy that if they attempt to gang up against Ruto, they'll simply be replaying 2002. In 2002, Moi attempted to perpetuate the Kenyatta and Moi dynasties, and the country rebelled, and Uhuru was defeated decisively. Uhuru only came to become a real presidential candidate when he did not come as a scion of the Kenyatta family, but now when he came as a victim of the post-election violence cases at The Hague. Now, to close it a little bit further, whereas that sympathy vote, Dr. Seli, can work beautifully well for Ruto, and therefore we should encourage the dynasties to come together, reading the political chess game. And if you cannot read it, then you are not a politician. Reading the political chess game, Mheshimiwa Okello, I see the following. The dynasties are not only regrouping in an attempt to lock out Ruto and others, but they are also at the same time driving the referendum agenda. So that now, once we create more offices, there'll be enough positions for the scions of those dynasties to share positions. I have seen on social media, for example, something trending, a photograph of Raila here, ceremonial president, Uhuru here, executive prime minister, and Gideon Moi here, deputy prime minister. So there's nothing that can stop these guys to do that kind of thing and Kenyans blindly to follow it. So we will continue reading the political chess game. We will remain active to make sure that we influence things to move in the interest of the greater majority. And the greater majority are those people who are outside the four dynasties that I've referred to.
All right, let's hear from Kimani Motangi. Gerald, will come to you.
Yeah, I think, Debarl, just a few things to say on top of what I said. One, I think then we also have to redefine what a dynasty is, I think, in our references, because it looks like once you get elected president in Kenya and you have more than 4 children who will grow up to maturity, by the time you are still alive and they bury you in your old age, then you have efficiently and successfully fomented and started a dynasty. That's the definition. I mean, if Kibaki is a dynasty, because if you look at all those people, the only thing that they have done is had one of their own, maybe their fathers, being president, and then probably being succeeded by a son in the two cases. I mean, I think in the strict definition of what a dynasty would be, I mean, you would be looking at probably, the Queens and the JFK, and the Kennedy's families and this kind of thing, maybe. In fact, but besides that,
just to aid you also, we have Vitalis, who's also telling Boni something. Yes. When we're talking about dynasties.
Vitalis who?
Vitalis N there is saying that does Boni want to tell us he has never met a politician from Jubilee? Boni should know that after him, his sons will be perceived as from a dynasty. Speaking of loyal respect, it's quite funny because you got one word. That's
what I'm saying, Debarl, that we have to define what we really mean by dynasties. Because, fairly, and I just want to make 2 points. It's also fair to note that you should not be either limited or gagged or subdued or either probably disadvantaged because you come from a family where either your father had big shoes, for that matter, and so that enough. But then on this Ruto question that you posed, let me speak as a politician. One, Debarl, every time when you hear people talking about you in whichever way as a politician, and a lot, then it's a good thing for you. It means you're doing things. That's why people will talk. Otherwise, if people are mum and quiet about you, they don't refer to you, then you need to be very worried. Now that tells you that when people are talking so much about Ruto and of course the tone they're speaking with, that he's doing things, and that's why he's being spoken about. Two, as a politician, because I want to take specific reference to what you said, that he was seen selling, going back to the market where he used to sell chicken. as a politician, you tell your story the way you want to tell it, and you create your own narrative, and there is nothing wrong. I mean, he said that is who he was when he started, and that is the storyline he would want to carry to his future and to be identified and known that way. And that's why I said the last time when we were discussing this, if you looked at the life of Kibaki before he became president, the life of Jomo Kenyatta before he became president, they had similar stories. So this is the Ruto story, and he's probably better and and well advised to carry his own true story. People will go more for that particular story. Now, on this question of the sympathy votes, I really beg to differ on the question of sympathy votes, because sympathy votes, if you look at, for example, what happens most of the time if a politician, for example, is jailed, or if they lose a loved one and they go back to re-election, and you see that's what has been happening, like when you have a member of parliament dying, the wife comes to run for member of parliament, and immediately when they've run, the wife is elected. That is basically or largely on the sympathy vote. But sympathy votes, hardly, they rarely last. If one would bank on that, I don't think so. And that's why I said, because I know the man Ruto, and I've seen him, and the Kenyans have seen him working for all these years. Other than this now debate that's introduced because of the events of the last two weeks or 3, everybody knows that this is a vibrant guy. He moves. He's got political capital and points to sell. So I think for him, and I also take cognizance of what he said lastly, that there's a rumor he would be feeling left out and wants to be included in that table of dialogue with the Mwangis and Kimanis on. I don't think that is his league, if you ask me. To want to be admitted to that discussion with the lawyer Mwangi and Kimani, that's absolutely not his league. In all fairness, I mean, he's a deputy president. I mean, those guys are lawyers acting on behalf of whatever. And if he was to agitate for a guy like Chilchil, for what gain? In my view, if you asked me, the campaign he's run, the narrative he's had, the pursuit he's followed of who he is, what he can do, all the way from the record he's drawn from when he was a minister in the Ministry of Agriculture, the performance and leadership he's shown when he's deputy president, that is his storyline. That's what to follow. I mean, from the according to the big and famous song of From Nothing to Something in the biblical story, I tell you, the David Goliath story is a big story all the time. So if he pursues it and shows what he can do, beautiful.
But wait,
a small one. Wamatangi.
Because what Wamatangi is saying, Wamatangi is saying that Ruto should reject any sympathy votes if they are any.
No, that's what I'm saying. I mean, when you go to cast your ballot, a small percentage will come to but I'm speaking as a matter of strategy, and I believe I've seen him work. I would hardly think that he would have on one of his slates a big poster saying sympathy.
Thank you, Matangi.
And disregard the other strategy.
Yeah, let's say from Jared, then we come to you. Okay. Yeah, Jared.
Well, Debarl, today it's interesting that I'm sandwiched by my colleagues in NASA who are in Fort Kenya, but seeming quite sympathetic to William Ruto. I don't know whether that informs the next course of action
after
for
the
Fort Kenya.
But
suffice to say, what we have seen as the cartoon is Gado's personal opinion.
Yes.
We cannot own, of course, that kind of opinion. But at least to some degree, it gives the political trajectory going forward. What happened in Harambee House and still happening today with the litany of handshakes are still shrouded in secrecy. And therefore, those who have otherwise thought that they would be given a leverage to eavesdrop on what is going on are definitely disturbed. And you saw immediately the handshake occurred. President Uhuru Kenyatta left the country, I think, for Rwanda. William Ruto, who should actually be the substantive president when the real president is out of the country, was busy campaigning in Mombasa as a reaction towards that particular handshake. As far as I'm concerned, he read alienation in this kind of structure. And you may not be very far from the truth that he's angling Davis Chirchir to be part of the 7-member team from Jubilee. And if that is the case, then that tells you how disturbed William Ruto is. And things are not even made better by, you know, the what would then call dynasties meetings. And, you know, he's seeing Raila Odinga meeting with President Moi, President Kibaki. He just met Uhuru Kenyatta. So to him, being an outsider, in quotes, he's looking at this as a way of pushing him off the main rudder and thereby perpetuating the dynasties and their families and the generations to come. So I think this then becomes a very key consideration for William Ruto. But what we cannot forget, Debarl, is that politics of Kenya is local, and that is why kingpins have always thrived. Once you have a formation that incorporates all the kingpins, those who really matter and you know, call shots within this country, and you are looking at perhaps a Kibaki generation coming in, you look at Moi's generation coming in, then you have Raila Odinga and perhaps Mudavadi and maybe Kalonzo Musyoka, and you have that kind of a formation getting to meet a presidential candidate such as William Ruto. By 6 a.m. the results shall have been declared. Really? In favor of who? In favor of those who are perpetuating the Raila Odinga's cycles. Because William Ruto, well, I hope Ford Kenya is not heading there, but assume they're heading there. And you become, William Ruto becomes so generous that Ford Kenya gets a deputy position in the next presidential election, then they are vanquished early in the morning. Because that kind of formation that is going forward will not be very, very juicy to them. But let me finish by saying what my brother did say, that publicity is good. Whether negative or positive, it works for the people. But fundamentally, what happens today has very little to do with 2022. I know how forgetful Kenyans are, and this insect of forgetfulness, I think, stung us. And therefore, you only have to maintain the tempo until 2022 for what we are seeing today to have any meaning in the next election.
All right, just also to take a keen look on what is on the front page of Star. Unity deal to bring back Prime Minister. Is that the case of all this coming together? That will be another question that is still hanging heavily over our heads, that we need to be, of course, knowing the answer. And then also a telling one also from the Daily Nation. Still on Ruto. Ruto Kibwana meeting sparks wiper jitters. Makueni governor meets DP a day after threatening to withdraw support for Kalonzo Musyoka party. So it seems also Ruto is such a hawk that is still waiting for, you know, like a scavenger. For the fallout of the NASA, what is really happening, he's always there. So reading and timing and of course having a keener eye like an eagle. And that is what he's taking advantage of as well. Maybe we can get comments from, yeah, are you winding up comments?
Yes, I think I want to thank you today for balancing the panel. You've gotten it so well. You have two NASA, Sally and I, and you have two Jubilee, Okello and Kimani Wamatangi. Thank you so much. You shouldn't complain, my brother.
But I need to make a caveat as well, you know, also, so that it doesn't seem to be so skewed. All the Jubilee legislators, same for Matangi, right? Getting them on the panel has been so hard today, right? Because of a devolution conference, and many of them actually have traveled as well. So don't put me on a hotspot as well. Yeah? Okay, your closing remarks.
Anyway, I think it would be unfair to the viewers if we left them thinking that dynasty is not something which is clear. You heard from the guy who tweeted and was saying that Vitalis was saying that as soon as my family becomes automatically a dynasty. No, that is not a dynasty. A dynasty means only two things. A dynasty politically is when you have a sequence of rulers from the same family. Yeah, that is a dynasty. And in terms of economics, you have an economic dynasty if a series of members of the same family are distinguished in terms of wealth and money, like the Delamere dynasty and stuff like that. So I thought that is important for us to define. But then finally, and I must insist on this one, much as Okello wants to corner me, that Sally and I, we are holding brief for Ruto. We are not. We are widening the scope as required for the dialogue. We are saying, let Ruto name somebody to sit there. Uhuru has named his. Raila has named his. We want Wetangula to name his, Kalonzo to name his, and Mudavadi to name his. Thereafter, we will then bring in the trade unions, we'll bring in the clergy and other stakeholders.
Civil society.
The civil society. We need to include all Kenyans.
Thank you.
Unless we think we are special.
Thank you.
I don't think I'm special.
Right. Okay, your closing remarks, Jared Okel?
Well, I just realized that ODM was kicked out of NASA by both Boni Alwele and Dr. Iseli. And I'm going to report this to my party leader when I leave here. I don't know when this was brewed.
Is part of the NASA secretariat or committee.
Well,
yeah,
they are saying that we are now part of Jubilee, so I don't know since when. But most importantly,
9th of March.
9th.
All right, briefly, as you're winding up.
So what I'm saying is the 9-point agenda that the handshake was meant to address. I think as Kenyans, we need not to leave this behind. Even as we debate, even as we differ on certain fundamental concerns, if we address these 9 points issues, talking about inclusivity, safety and security, you know, all that put together, this country will indeed go forward.
Thank you.
It doesn't matter what positions people are going to hold, whether one is going to be named a prime minister or not. These positions come and go, but the country will stay forever.
Thank you.
But I know if it is open for political expediency, to the level that William Ruto has to bring his representative, Honorable Wetangula has to bring Boni Alwele into this, you know, we then may, at the end of the day, dilute this entire process. Because then you subject it to push and shove, you subject it to antagonism within a boardroom, and that is not the direction we'd want to take.
Thank you.
Remember, in the last 2007 Grand Coalition government,
Thank you.
it called for the intervention of foreigners to come and bring us together. We have so decided to have a homegrown solution to the problems bedeviling us as a country.
Thank you. Let's stop it at that. We hear from Sally very briefly.
Debarl, I don't know whether you also notice what I've noticed, that whenever something comes up, Kenyans like mouthing it all the time. Now there's the big 4 of Jubilee, there is the 9-point agenda of the handshake. We keep on saying these things. However, the thing is, when we point out issues, it doesn't mean that we are sympathetic to William Ruto as such. We're just pointing out facts, because ODM has never learned from their past. When they managed to clear William Ruto out of ODM, they still didn't learn. Then they managed to get Salim Mvurya out of ODM. They still didn't learn. They are trying to get other people now out of NASA. They still don't learn. But they got Kalonzo out. They still don't learn. But what my main thing, which I said earlier, was the earlier these matters are brought on the table of dialogue and negotiation, the better. Because if we don't, this handshake is being diluted, as you've shown on the screen yourself. There's Kivutha Kibwana and the Deputy President. And we don't know who else the Deputy President is going to be handshaking next. So this handshake matter is being, diluted. Unless we move quickly and put it on the table and dialogue.
Thank you.
Let me just finish with this. Because whether we like it or not, the issues that drove us to where we were have not been dealt with. Even as we speak right now, the appointments that are going on are still skewed. The appointments in the public service that are going on are still skewed.
Subject for another day.
Right
Thank
now, the bills in Parliament, miscellaneous amendment bills, are still terrible. Like trying to get the Public Service Commission to appoint vice chancellors. There are still, the same things are going on. We need this dialogue on the table.
Thank you.
Like yesterday.
Thank you. Kimani Matangi, briefly, as we're winding up.
As I just make my final comments, I just want to note that that we would want all of us as Kenyans to treat the handshake as a starting point. That from there we can begin as Kenyans and start moving forward. But what I wanted to make my final comments about Debarl is to acknowledge with other Kenyans that today, since yesterday, we are marking the devolution conference in Kakamega, and I just wanted to make a comment or two that yes, we are celebrating devolution. Kenyans have made a lot of their views known, and the expectations Kenyans have had out of devolution. And in the next one, I hope that Kenyans then can stand and say that the work that has been done, all these monies, if you look at the monies, I was looking at the figure that Nairobi has received, for example, close to 100 billion since the time when the devolution started. And that we are saying those volumes of money are money that should make market difference, that can be seen and felt by people. If you look at the amounts received in counties hitherto that were said to be backward, like Turkana, Marsabit, even my own Kiambu and other places, that we need to agitate, we need to move a bit further and even more forcefully to ensure that in the next lot of leadership we are going to elect into the counties, that the expectations of Kenyans is going to be realized by having responsible leaders leaders who are accountable. So I want to join Kenyans as we celebrate devolution.
Thank you.
But say in the next conference, I think we will need to reduce on the fanfare and increase more on the action.
Thank you. No. My director, she is on my case. Next week, of course, you take note of that. We shall. Right. All right.